Exhibit 13. Guglielmo Marconi. On December 12, 1901, Guglielmo Marconi received a radio transmission across the Atlantic Ocean at a distance of 2,135 miles. A lot of people told Marconi that it was impossible to send a radio signal that far due to the alleged curvature of the Earth. In fact, under the globe model, those skeptics were right, as there would be a curvature drop of 527 miles over that distance. A drop of 527 miles is huge. Do you think that radio signals traveling at the speed of light can jump a curvature that size? The distances of radio transmissions have gotten much further since Marconi, again proving there is no curvature. Every time no curvature is proven through actual experimentation, mainstream science counters with imaginary new reasons why the Earth only appears to be flat. Due to Marconi, the ionosphere was imagined and created. Exhibit 14. Knickebein. Knickebein was a VHF, that's very high frequency radio targeting system used by German bombers in World War II. Knickebein was a line of sight targeting system. For this example, there were two beams, one from Stolberg, located 443 miles away from the target, Derby, England. The second was from Cleve, 331 miles away from Derby. What's fascinating is that the leading government science advisor for Churchill, Frederick Lindemann, refused to believe that there was such a beam due to the curvature of the Earth. The advisor was right. There should have been a major problem with the curvature, as VHF beams do not allegedly wrap around the curvature. It turns out that the Knickebein system did exist, and people lost their lives because Lindemann believed in the curvature. But the fact remains that Knickebein was a line-of-sight targeting system. Accordingly, Wikipedia and other websites claim that the German bombers remained within line of sight of the two beams. What's the problem then? There absolutely should not have been a line of sight with the bombers. With hidden heights at approximately 64,844 feet and 117,504 feet, there was no way for these Knickebein systems to have line of sight with bombers that only flew at 19,200 feet. The Knickebein targeting system proved there was no curvature. Exhibit 15, Lorentz C. Lorentz C was a naval positioning system used for decades, allegedly up to the 1990s. Essentially, it worked by two radio towers on the coast that would transmit radio waves across the ocean. The Lorentz system would use the difference in the timing of the radio signals to calculate the vessel's location. This system was highly accurate and is probably the same underlying application used today that is referred to as GPS. If you're looking at the map, you probably already see the problem. These stations, hundreds of miles apart, could be 1,000 miles away from the vessel, meaning these radio waves would have to have hopped a curvature up to 100 miles tall. The official explanation is that these radio waves traveling at the speed of light hug the surface of the Earth and wrap around the curvature, inexplicably jumping bulges of water and Earth dozens of miles tall. Does that sound believable to you? Wouldn't curvature hopping interfere with the location readings of the vessel? Like Marconi and Knickebein, Lorentz C is another proof of the flat Earth. One more point about Lorentz C. Look at this coverage map. Where is Lorentz missing? Remember that Lorentz was developed for the military. Did no one think it important to have location guidance for the navies in the southern hemisphere? The fact that Lorentz was missing in the south indicates that there was a problem with distances for southern vessels, which makes complete sense when viewed under a flat Earth map. The same applies for airplanes, which always lose their GPS signals in the oceans over the south, again evincing a flat Earth. Exhibit 16. The non-rotating atmosphere. At the equator, the ground is allegedly rotating at 1,037 miles per hour. Yet Felix Baumgartner took a balloon up to 128,000 feet above the surface, and it took him 2.5 hours to get that high. So, if the ground is rotating at 1,037 miles per hour, then Felix Baumgartner should have landed in the Pacific Ocean. As you are aware, Felix didn't land in the Pacific Ocean. He actually landed 44 miles east of his launch site. That's against the supposed rotation, and absolutely the wrong direction. Don't you think the rotation of the Earth should have affected Felix's jump? They want you to believe that as Felix rose up through the air, that the layers of the atmosphere continually sped up to keep up with the ground below. Does that make sense to you? I'm sorry, but the globe model is belied by fluid dynamics. Look at this volcanic plume. Although angled Perpendicular to the surface, the volcanic plume is unaffected by any purported rotation of the ground below it. How could the upper layers of the plume keep up with the ground spinning at 1,000 miles per hour? It's asinine when you really think about it. From airplanes, to weather balloons, to hurricanes, to clouds in the sky, nothing is affected by any alleged rotation of the Earth. I really like this quote from physicist Dr. Carl Scheffer. But we know of no body, the parts of which have much less connection with each other than is the case with air. The air layer next to the Earth, really dragged along by the communicated motion, would not be able to communicate its motion to the layers above it, for the simple reason that it stands in no connection with them. These upper layers must therefore remain in their place, or which would signify the same thing, would apparently flow westward with the same rapidity with which the Earth is said to rotate to the east. Now, since a point on the equator, if the Earth rotates on its axis in a day, must move eastward at the rate of 1,250 feet a second, the air would similarly move 1,250 feet westward in a second, which would more than 10 times surpass the velocity of the most fearful hurricane. We cannot perceive the rotation of the Earth in any way. We cannot demonstrate it. There are no air currents which we can justly regard as, or even supposed to be, consequences of this rotation. These facts ought to be proof enough against the existence of a rotation of the Earth. Must it not appear almost absurd in us, preoccupied by what they have taught us in school, to accept a theory of the rotation of the Earth which neither is nor can be proven? Must we not wonder at the readiness of the learned of nearly the entire world, from the time of Copernicus and Kepler, to accept the conception of the rotation of the Earth, and then search afterwards now for nearly 3.5 centuries for arguments to maintain it, but of course without being able to find them?